Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning. And today we've got another very interesting combination to try out with a new shell that just recently released to the market. We've tried another version of them here just recently with some pretty interesting results. So I'm definitely curious to see what this version of them can do as well. And I do apologize for any weird lighting in the background or anything like that. We've got some really bright sun and some terrible shadows this afternoon, but we're working with what we've got. Either way, as for the shells we've got out here today, I brought out some of these, the new Herter's Strutter shells. These ones are the 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 1.5 ounce payload of lead 5s, moving about 1260 feet per second. Now we did just recently try the 3 inch, 1 7/8 ounce version of these with some pretty solid results. For these being a roughly $10 a box shell, you do get 10 rounds in one of these boxes, so they're $1 or maybe a few cents over $1 a round after it's all said and done. And Herter's is made by Winchester, so I have a sneaky suspicion that these are probably just a Winchester Super X shell in a Herter's box, and it's kind of what we saw last week with the 3 inch versions as well, but we'll see what the 2 3/4 inch shells can actually do, because who knows, they could be way better for some magical reason. So we'll see what we can get out of them. And for the setup we're going to run them through, I brought out my Remington 1187. It has a 28 inch barrel on it, and for a choke, I went with a pretty budget option since these are a budget shell. This is an HS Strut Undertaker 665 constriction turkey choke. Now for being, I think, like an $18 choke or something like that, you can get a bunch of variety of these for around $20-ish. This has been a pretty surprising performer with some of these more basic or more budget-oriented lead shells. It's always given us a pretty solid pattern with that type of stuff. So we'll see what this very cheap, budget, basic combination can give us, because there's really nothing fancy going on here with the shell or the choke. So we'll see how it performs. But as for our test today, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got the turkey paper at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity from the shells. So let's get you guys to view that target and see how the 2 3/4 inch Herter Strutter shells can do, and if they're any better or worse or the same as compared to the 3 inch version. I don't quite know what we're going to see out of them yet, so let's take our shot and see what they give us. Alright, so that shell gave us 1325 through the chrono. The boss claim is 1260, so out of our 28 inch barrel, we saw a little bit above their claim, and that was pretty much the same case with the 3 inch version as well. We saw, I don't know, 50 feet per second or so above their claim. So far, they seem to be moving a little quicker than what their box is saying, and that's more than enough velocity for a lead number 5, if not pushing a little bit too quick for some loading. So I guess let's head down to our 40-yard target and see what kind of a pattern we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And we do absolutely have a dead turkey here all day long. There's a couple through the brain and several more down the spine. So yeah, you would have absolutely got him at 40 yards. And looking at that turkey paper there, there's really nowhere that he can go and get away from you. He's gonna get hit with multiple pellets no matter where he's at. But the pattern was pretty centered up, and we definitely have several relatively noticeable voids, especially right up here just off the top right edge of this bird's head. There are multiple areas there that don't really have a couple pellets in them, so it's not perfect. And we do have to remember that these are a $10 box of shells. They're a 2 3/4 inch shell, and they only have 1.5 ounces worth of payload of lead 5s, so we don't have an astronomical amount of shot here to work with. So I would say this is somewhere in the middle. It's definitely not a super tight overall pattern by any means. It does give you leeway to work with, but we really don't have any kind of tightening or hotter area in our core either. Around the edges, we do have several little strings and flyers and gaps and voids around there as well. So definitely not the ultimate 2 3/4 inch turkey pattern, that's for sure. Would it be good enough to get you the turkey every time at 40 yards? Absolutely. With that combination, it would be good enough. And if your gun had changeable chokes and you were on a budget, it would seem like you could get a box of these and one of those HS Strut chokes and be perfectly fine if your gun was only a 2 3/4 inch chamber. Now, is this a pattern that I would immediately go out and get every piece of this combination to switch to for my turkey hunts? So far, no, but it's a very budget combination today, and ultimately, I think that's probably about what we should expect to see. That's about the definition of a serviceable pattern. It's gonna get you the turkey, but you probably won't have the best pattern in the turkey woods at the same time. And looking at it close here, it doesn't look like the pattern is blown open to me. It just looks like this might be suffering a little bit from, I guess, what I'm calling budget shell syndrome, where sometimes these cheaper shells want all the constriction they can get to help them out. So I'm curious to see what happens if we run these through like a 655 or a 650 or something like that. Are we going to get to a point where it's too tight of a choke and blows our pattern open, or will these actually like that tighter constriction and help them out some? I don't know. Either way, for today, I think the pattern pretty much speaks for itself. So for a baseline, a 2 3/4 inch lead 5 turkey shell, that's $1 a round. I think this is pretty reasonable, all things considered, but I definitely think we can get better too. We just need to find the right choke combination or the right choke constriction for them, which I think we can definitely do. And here's the wad from that shell, and judging by what it looks like here, I do believe this is the same wad that Winchester uses in a lot of their turkey shells, like their Super X, Double X, and Longbeard shells. So we know these can be a good wad, but with these cheaper options like those Super X shells, you kind of need to find the right choke or constriction that gets them the best they can be for what they are. But this one looks very much normal, nothing out of the ordinary. There's nothing stuck down in there. There's no major damage or anything. So I think it did about as good as what it could have done considering our combination today, and we'll see what it likes as far as choke constriction goes moving forward. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that pattern right there? I think it can kind of speak for itself, and I think I've probably kind of already said what everybody's thinking about it. It is usable, it's serviceable if it's what you had. It would absolutely get you a turkey at 40 yards all day long. But I definitely think we can get better out of them. Now, yeah, they are $1 a round, very cheap, budget-oriented loading, so there's probably only so good we're going to be able to get out of them. But I think we can bring them in a little tighter than that, or at least even that pattern up a little bit. We don't have a ton of payload to work with 1.5 ounces of lead 5s, so we'll see what we can get when we run them through some tighter choke constrictions and stuff. But let me know all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see out of them? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you gotten the chance to test any of these new Herter Strutter shells yet? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is that a good enough pattern that you would hunt with it? Or would you want to see them a little bit tighter or more condensed down? And what other chokes or setup combos do you want to see us run these shells through? Let me know all that down below. At the end of the day, is this a combination that I'm immediately going to go out and switch to? No, it's not, but at least now we know we've got a starting point and a baseline to work off of, because we can definitely improve over that, I think, even though that is a usable pattern just the way it is. So we'll see how it does as we continue to test them out. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.